regular meeting, the Operations Oversight Committee and the Board of Retirement. Terry, do you have words to share?
Yes. This meeting is being conducted virtually and in person, so I will do a roll call of the trustees to confirm attendance. Ms. Ginsburg. Here. Mr. Santos.
Here.
Ms. Gray.
Here.
Mr. Sanchez. Mr. Oakham is not in attendance. Mr. Green.
Present.
Mr. Robbins.
Here.
Ms. Greenwood is not in attendance. Mr. Kehoe. Mr. Harris.
Here.
Chair Bernstein.
I'm here.
Staff participating in the meeting include CEO Santos Kryman, Deputy CEO Louis Lugo, AEOs JJ Popovich and Laura Guglielmo, Chief Counsel Stephen Rice, from IT, Kathy Delano and Kelso Templo. Trustees, please use the raise your hand Zoom option to be placed in queue. At this time, we ask all meeting participants to mute your mics until you are ready to speak, and we may now proceed with the agenda.
Thank you. And I don't remember if you said it, but with Mr. Knox not here, Mr. Green, you will be a voting member today.
Right.
So anything for item 2, the 2449?
There's no requests.
Then we're on to item 3, approval of minutes. I would note that Mr. Kehoe is here. I need a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of April 5th, 2023.
Motion.
Been moved and seconded. If we could vote.
The motion has to be announced.
Thank you. Terry, do we have any slips from the public?
No, I do not have any.
So we will skip over item 4, public comment, to go on to item 5A, reports. Mr. Lugo, take
Yes,
it away.
good morning, Committee Chair Bernstein. Good morning, committee members. In our briefing, I'm only going to highlight one item. We're pretty excited to present to the board. I think we'll have something up here briefly. And I want to highlight the communications team, Cynthia Martinez and her team, as well as JJ Popovich. If you recall in our offsite, and I think Ms. Gray and several others have mentioned our ability to educate our members, not only with our newsletters and our counseling sessions, but also ensuring that they have access to educational material via our website. So we have partnered with an external entity, and we are uploading videos, educational videos. So we have three new videos that we've uploaded, the team's uploaded in the last week as part of our Retirement University series. It has to do with our option 1, option 2, and option 3, benefit selection. So members have different options in terms of when they come to retire, whether or not they get a full benefit, if they have a surviving spouse, what they leave to their spouse and so forth. So we've had 3 new videos. It's I encourage the team to look at it. We're going to be advertising it on our newsletter, but that again goes to our commitment around educational material and making sure that our members, to Mr. Santos, Trustee Santos's point, don't have that level of anxiety. And at least before they come to us, they've done their diligence in terms of some of the information that we have readily available for them to make a well-informed decision. So that's the only highlight. Certainly stand for questions as it relates to the briefing.
Yes, I have to say that was wonderful. I get these pop-ups on my phone from YouTube. And the first thing that popped up was option 1 for LACERA. I said, what? I opened it up and there it was. And this was like in the last week.
Yep,
I guess.
last week.
It was amazing. I said, look at that. There was no option 4 yet, but I know you're working on that. Just going, where's option 4? That's what I'm interested in. But it was really nice. And I think if our members knew to subscribe, hit that subscribe button, and their notifications are on, it will always come up on their phone or computer all the time. Everything, I think every YouTube video that we do will pop up, every new one.
Great point. We'll make a note of that as well and making sure
That was
that we
great.
add that subscribe button.
Really great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that comment. Ms. Gray, any other comments, questions? Then we are rolling along to 5B, Ms. Delino and Mr. Temple. This is the introduction to the PMO.
Good morning, Chair Bernstein and trustees. One of the most strategic changes that we've made to the systems division in the last 2 years has been the creation of a new team. They're called the Project Management Office, or the PMO. And Kelso Templo is the manager of that team. and he's going to present to you today what his team has been up to and give you a little bit of background.
Thank you, Kathy. Good morning, Chairman Bernstein and trustees.
Just a quick question, Mr. Chair, if I
Please.
may. So the PMO reports to you,
Yes.
Ms. Delano? Thank you.
Take it away, sir.
Thank you so much. And could you please go to there you go, item number 4. And with you here today is the slide containing the PMO responsibilities, and some of them are defining a specific project management methodology to handle project at LACERA. PMO is also responsible for standardizing project management by applying best practices and also the repeatable successful processes. We also do the project management as far as allocating the right project manager that will tackle the project itself. And also the project manager needs to be available in order to successfully manage the project and meeting the time and also the budget allocated to the project. PMO is also responsible in maintaining the project as far as the knowledge-based management. And that knowledge base is normally containing the documents that relate to the project as a source of reference, and also documents for other LACERA staff and also other staff from different business division. And lastly, we provide support in terms of guidance, planning, scheduling, and procurement, because we are expert on that field, and also the execution and tracking of the project itself. Bonnie, please, page 6. Okay, as Kathy mentioned, we've instituted the project management office 2.5 years ago. We are on its earliest stage and we haven't matured yet, but we're on our way. So as you can see, some of the current state that we have right now is we have established an effective communication plan that involves having meetings, bi-weekly meetings with the subject matter experts, stakeholders, and through the sponsors. We've also devised a way to produce some stats report to kind of like manage the expectations of our sponsors and our business division managers. We've also provided some training, coaching, and mentoring to some of the stakeholders. And also we've established an Agile Scrum methodology to handle our project management. And then we implemented the Jira project management software. It's a software that kind of manages our project. And we are continually developing and formalizing our PMO office. Can you go to 9, please? Okay, so as you can see, this is the different stages of our project phases. On the top left quadrant, it is our project initiation. The PMO fills out the project charter and then presents them to the IT Coordination Council. We obtain their approval, and then once we obtain their approval, we enter it into our Jira Mac dashboard to produce, to ensure that we track it and then we have visibility. It says Mac because our division manager uses it as a way to find out what's the status of their projects. And then we have a project kickoff where we kind of like define the expectation of each of the responsible parties. And also we kind of discuss the scope of the project, how much budget is allocated within the project, and also the responsibilities of the stakeholders as well as the SME. On the next quadrant is the solution procurement. On that quadrant, we determine if the RFP is needed. If RFP is needed, it is a different path, and we kind of produce that. And then once we have final RFP, we come to the board and obtain their approval. And once the board approves it, we post it to our LACERA.com, and then we begin our vendor solicitation. And as far as the vendor solicitation is concerned, we kind of like hold some vendor conferences. And that vendor conferences involves us having the vendor come here or perhaps meet with our stakeholders and then presenting the possible solutions that we can use to satisfy the requirements of the project itself. We also have due diligence, and that due diligence is kind of a practice that PMO participates and facilitate. We run some rating sheets, and then that rating sheets has several categories that that rates the vendor, and then the vendor that scored highly, we kind of like present them to the board for a formal finalization and selection. And then once the board and the executive management approves the specific vendor, then we start with our contract negotiation. And that contract negotiation, we get the approval of the executive, and then procurement processing begins. And then on the lower quadrant, that is the development phase. The development phase is sort of like having a formal vendor kickoff. And that vendor kickoff, we kind of have an introduction of the project scrum team from our LACERA and also from the vendor. Why? Because we need to manage their expectation. We need to obtain their expectation as well to make this project successful. Also, we developed some project governance. Some of the governance that we developed is establish a great communication plan. The communication plan that I just mentioned earlier involves weekly meetings, bi-weekly meetings with the stakeholders. And then we also have some status report, which is in part of the slides. And that status report is sort of like managing the expectations of the sponsors and the stakeholders. And then we go to sprints. Sprints are typically a time box event. It's usually 1 to 4 weeks, an activity that our project scrum team participates in completing some of the deliverables. As you can see on the lower right quadrant, some of the sprints composed of discovery and assessment, identifying what's the current state of our LACERA, and then having a requirements gathering and scope sign off by the subject matter expert. We also have some of the development phase wherein the vendor, facilitated by the PMO, collaborate with our subject matter expert to develop and configure the proposed solution to satisfy the requirements that they submitted. And lastly, we have the testing once we completed the development phase. And that testing involves integration, quality assurance testing, and then UAT. Lastly, as far as the implementation phase, we provide some, working with a vendor, they provide us some training and workshops. And also we perform some vendor succession planning and knowledge transfer. Why? We will be divorcing with the vendor and the candidates sooner or later. So therefore, we need to have the capacity to enhance the system moving forward. And then we have the go live event. The go live event usually is a ceremonial event that say, okay, we are going live now, we are going production. And then so our stakeholders would start using the system. After that, we have some post-implementation activities, and some of them are fine-tuning via lessons learned and process improvement. We also have some project closeout, and that again is a ceremony where our sponsors, executive sponsors, and also the PMO signs off, meaning say everything's okay and we have to move forward. Lastly, there's documentation, and then we transfer our system to operation, which they'll take over. And then lastly, we have some post-implementation reporting, wherein we go back to the board again and then present to them what were the lessons learned, how effective the project was, what were the pitfalls, and then what are the future enhancement of this system. Bonnie, next slide, which is next page. On this slide, this is the IT Coordination Council. To talk more about it, I will defer to Kathy for more explanation.
Thanks, Council. So we couldn't really talk about the PMO without talking about ITCC. So I know I'm throwing out a lot of acronyms, but the ITCC is the Information Technology Coordination Council, and it is an executive level group. And the pathway to the PMO is through the ITCC. So if anyone in our organization, any division has a technology need, they would bring it to the ITCC for discussion. We talk about budget, we talk about competing needs, priorities, and there's a process for the approval of a new technology project. Once the technology project is approved, you can see who the voting members are and who the non-voting members are on the slide. Then the project is turned over to the PMO. So again, the path to the PMO is through the ITCC. So back to you.
Thank you, Kathy. Next page, please. As you can see, this is our project charter. Our project charter is a formal document. What it does is it's our Bible. As you can see, the project charter has information such as the project objective, the description, what is the scope of the project itself, who's the sponsors, the requester, which is the business division manager, and also the budget allocated to that project itself. And also it has the expected project duration. The importance of the project charter is that whenever the need arises, we go back to the project charter and kind of like inform everybody, this is the charter and we have to stick with the project. So as soon as we fill out the project charter, the project manager, the PMO takes over and the project is now formal. Next page, please. As you can see in this PowerPoint, it is our MAC dashboard. MAC stands for, I believe, Management Action Committee, which are mostly a business division managers and the chiefs. This is the listing of all the projects that PMO is in charge of. We use it for project visibility, and it's being shared to all the MAC dashboard, MAC folks, and it's available via our LACERA Connect. As you can see, there are like the projects itself, the descriptions, what are the status of the projects, and also the executive sponsors as well as the project managers, and the priority of the project, and the start and end date of the project. Can you go to slide number 15? Okay. As you can see on this slide, it is our vendor rating sheet sample. As far as our due diligence, as I mentioned before, during our vendor solicitation, we kind of like run some vendor evaluation, and then we rate them according to the vendor rating sheet. In this example, we rate the different vendors as far as their company overview. Other categories that we use is how secured the specific organization is, if they kept up with their certifications, such as their HIPAA, their FedRAMP, or their SOC 2. Also, we rate them based on the strength and effectiveness of their presentation during the vendor evaluation and demonstration. We also ensure that they have enough resources in terms of their implementation team and their project team to satisfy our requirements, and then also post-implementation if they can support us. So that's part of our rating, which is not included here. And also recently we included the diversity, equity, and inclusion module, or rather questionnaires, where in our RFP and RFQ, we included some questionnaires such as the demographics of a specific organization, meaning to say we asked the breakdown of their staff and management in terms of the ethnicity, the gender, and also the breakdown of the culture. We also asked them if they're part of a minority business owner, also a GLAD supported enterprise. Also, we asked them if they're minority owned, and also if they are like women owned enterprises. And then once we get those answers, we factor them into the vendor rating sheet, and then we rate them accordingly. Next slide, please. Okay, so in this slide, this is the PMO future state. Again, we have to continue with the PMO maturation. As I mentioned, we are still in an infancy state, meaning we've had our PMO for 2.5 years. There's more to be learned. We have to formalize it. We have to apply lessons learned and process improvement. We also have to ensure that our project manager stays current by sending them to different classes, certifications, so that they'll stay up and learn the latest in the trend of project management industry. We have to ensure that we participate in the project managing of critical initiative. Also, we have to partake in strategic planning by being part of the action planning team. And also we have to participate in conferences as facilitated by SACRS, OCRS, also for CalPERS. Why? Because we have to network, learn, share, and also learn from success of other retirement agencies, as well as us sharing to them what are the success within LACERA. And also we have to continue advocating project management methodology and then the toolkits to the business division so that they'll be educated on what the PMO is all about. And lastly, we have to keep on complying with the board and the trustees guidance and sponsorship to transform PMO to a premier section. One of our goals is to ensure that we incorporate the board and the trustees guidance, their wisdom, and also their experience, so that In turn, the PMO will continue developing and formalizing and servicing our LACERA staff and eventually our members and us providing them the best of breeds in the project management services. Okay, next slide. And that completes our presentation day as far as the information, rather the project management office. We gladly welcome any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much, both of you, for the presentation. Are there any questions?
Just a quick.
Please, Mr. Harris.
MAC stands for.
Management,
Action.
Management
Action
Committee.
Committee, yeah.
Management action-
It's all the
okay.
division managers at LACERA.
Okay, got it. And I think you guys have about done police and fire and acronyms, so congratulations on that. Yeah, I'm not the military, but close. Also, SOW, that was on slide number 9.
Statement of work.
Stefan.
I'm sorry. So statement of work.
Statement.
Oh, that was pretty easy. All right, I got you. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Please.
I have a
Yes.
point of clarification on the previous item. I'd like to go back to, I don't want to interrupt the flow of the presentation. Just a quick question on the security. There's a lot of information that's being in these PMO projects that's being stored and collected, right? I mean, my first question, is there potential exposure? And if so, is it handled on site? How are we securing that crucial information and data from Ryan? I know we had the other presentation of the last meeting about bolstering that kind of stuff, but with this new project, is that handled on site with servers on site or?
So I'll answer and you guys can add to it. So all of our PMO documentation is stored in SharePoint, which is hosted by Microsoft. So it's in the cloud, but it is secured and backed up. So all of the documentation for a project as we're developing it would be stored there. Does that
And
answer your question?
And then as it relates to projects themselves, Trustee Green, when we engage in a project, our information security as well as our IT is involved at the front end with the vendor to make sure that whatever engagement we're involved in, whether it's a SOC 2, we do an actual information security analysis of that particular vendor once we've selected a vendor to make sure any data integrity issues are resolved well before we're engaged in any type of back and forth interaction. For instance, like our case management system, which is in process right now, maybe you can speak to that.
There's probably some things that are benign and not really a big threat, but there's some things that are absolutely crucial that we keep that information private, right?
So basically, part of our vendor rating is to ensure that they're secured, well secured, and that we work with our InfoSec, as Louis mentioned. And what we do is like we ask them some of their certification, whether it's like their FedRAMP, SOC 2, where they're like being secured, and also we run it by our InfoSec team. Why? Because we need to ensure that some of the data that we pass over them is pretty much secure. And we also make sure that we have controls, such as they fill out an NDA form to begin with, so that they're aware that some of the information that we share with them is pretty much confidential. So we have controls around it to ensure that it's more of a secure environment when we collaborate with the vendor.
If I can add a little bit to that, everything stated is completely true. Information security is involved at the inception of a project or pre-inception of a project. The SOC 2 and similar reports are very important, but more so, depending on the type of service they're going to provide, whether it's in the cloud, for instance, and it's our data that we're worried about, we do scrutinize the environment or the organization or vendor even more so than if it was a on-premise application that we're going to host, because we have our controls over it, right? Continuously, we also do what's considered continuous validation of our vendors. We have a platform that's called BitSite. 2 months ago, I shared our own score on there. But what's great about that tool, it keeps an eye on all our vendors, our tier 1 vendors with our most critical data. So as their scores fluctuate from a cyber security, information security perspective, we are well aware of it, and we engage with the vendor and ask them, why has this occurred? So it allows us to make sure our tier 1, tier 2 vendors are closely monitored at all times. It's not just a point in time validation. at initiation or every year as we review their SOC, their new report.
It's living.
It's living, it's a living monitoring process. So we're continuously improving our process, but we do have the technology to help us there as we grow our team. Definitely. No problem.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, just I don't know if it's appropriate. We moved on quickly. Maybe I should save it till the end of the presentation. It's on the agenda item, with me. It was in the reports, 5A.
Under the, a question under the operations
Yeah, just,
briefing.
there's just the only.
Mr. Rice, there's no we can go back for a question for, yes.
I just
Okay, go ahead.
the public information request, for a point of clarification, do we see what they're actually specifically requesting? There's individuals on there, it says report provided, 2 reports provided. There is some description in there of what it is, but.
I'll let Steph answer that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, in terms of the, I just want to make sure I'm clear. Is it the PRA?
Yeah, the PRA, yes, sir. So if you just go through it, there's some is very detailed, and then there's some that is, it just says per monthly request transmitted 1 document. So
The amount of information that's provided there is based on the complexity of the request. So there'll be more information provided with a lengthier or more complex request. We can tailor that information. The purpose of this is to provide the board with a high level summary of Public Records Act activity.
Gotcha. So if anytime we can request what the documents are to staff, if we wanted further clarification of it or
Yes.
the actual.
Yes,
specific
if you want information about a specific request, just let me know and I'll connect you with John Harrington, who is the attorney who handles the Public Record Act.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know.
Absolutely. Yes. Is that everything? Thank you. Okay. No. I did not want to cut you off. Yeah.
It's now or never.
Do we have anything else from either 5A or 5B? Just a clarification, this, the PMO, does this come back to us for approval, or is this just an update on something that you all are implementing?
Just an update. We
Thank
wanted
you.
to make sure you were aware of some changes that we've made.
We appreciate it very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Anything else, Louis?
No other comments. I think just from a maturation standpoint, and I know when Mr. Kryman came on board, that was one of his initiatives in terms of instituting a project management office. And I think we find it beneficial from ensuring that we have confidence in what you approve and fund for us in terms of projects, that they're being executed fully through that life cycle. So it's a very important component at LACERA.
Okay. Great. Thank you again. We are on to item 6, items for staff review.
I have nothing.
Thank you. We are on to item 7. Does anyone have any suggestions for future agendas? We are on to good of the order. There has been a mention of food. So I will simply throw the floor open if anyone wishes to provide a good of the order. Ms. Gray.
I'm sorry, I know everyone's hungry, but I just want to say, because Mr. Popowich was not in the room when I told you, Louis, thank you for the educational videos for our members. So Mr. Popowich, I want to tell you the same thing. You worked with communications in providing the YouTube option 1, 2, and 3. It popped up on my phone last week. I started looking at it and it was great. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And let me just take one moment here.
Brief moment, right?
As I know, I want food too. Obviously, I love food. Option 4 is there. So if you're looking at YouTube, the first ones that show up, there's a little arrow on the right-hand side. If you click that, it'll take you to the next, move it over. Option 4 is there.
Okay, well then it's done. Thank you for that portion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else for good of the order? The food will wait. Okay, I'd be happy to entertain a motion for adjournment. Without objection, we are adjourned.